Hello everyone, it's Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride. Welcome to our first midweek mini episode of 2025. In these episodes, I feature what it was like for you, one of our listeners, during one day of your bike adventure. Now, I love keeping you inspired with these stories, and if you want to stay even more connected, why not sign up for my podcast newsletter? It's where I share all the behind-the-scenes updates for Seek Travel Ride, our community news, as well as a sneak peek at who I've got lined up for the show in our upcoming guests. I'd love for you to be part of it, and I'm about to send the first edition of 2025 out in the next few days. So if you want to see what's in there, you can sign up through the link in the show notes, and let me help keep your adventure wanderlust stoked. And let's roll on together for the year. Now, in this episode, I am featuring Mathias, who I have actually featured before, along with his wife, Arev, for a full feature episode. This was way back in 2023, and at that stage, he and Arev were just partway through their world tour journey. I spoke with them when they were in Armenia, and since then they've actually made it all the way over to South Korea. But Mathias is going to be sharing one day from his trip, and you'll agree with me when you hear him talk that it was a pretty monumental one, as well as being very challenging. He and Arev were crossing a very high mountain pass in Tajikistan in the Pamirs. Without any further ado, let's listen to Mathias share one day of his trip.
Hey Bella, thanks for having me. This time I want to tell you about 24 hours of our amazing world bike tour when I thought my wife was trying to get me killed. It is a story that serves as an example for the importance of good communication. So we had made it to Tajikistan in Central Asia. On our way to the capital Dushanbe, the starting point of the legendary Pamir Highway, we had to cross another big mountain range first. There's this 5-kilometer long narrow black pipe with the reassuring nickname Tunnel of Death. It is infamous for its non-existent ventilation, poor lighting, occasional flooding and rockfall, and thus a pretty bad road surface. The reasonable choice is hitching through it on the back of a lorry. We did not do that. To avoid dangerous tunnels, we cycle the old road whenever feasible. Usually this adds some 100 meters of climb in an hour or two. Not such a big deal. However, that is Tajikistan, a country that pretty much consists of very high and steep mountains only. Checking the map, we had to zoom in quite a bit, but there was an old pass road. We continued zooming in, and then we could eventually read the name Ansop Pass, followed by the word closed in exclamation marks. That's not very good. We were looking at a 60-kilometer detour with about 2,000 meters of elevation gain, so we needed better intel. I've asked some old villagers that spoke Russian, and according to them, it should be possible. Very difficult, they said, but possible. Apparently, the road had been closed for nearly 2 decades. Anyways, we looked at it as a great chance to gain some high altitude experience ahead of the Pamir Highway. So, to minimize the risk of getting altitude sickness, the German Alpine Association recommends a slow and gradual ascent to allow for acclimatization. By increasing the sleeping altitude by no more than 300 to 500 meters per day, once you're above 2,500 meters, the body has a much easier time to adapt to the lower oxygen levels at that altitudes. That night before, we camped at roughly 2,000 meters above sea level. The road had already been shockingly bad since the turnoff to the tunnel, so we didn't get as far as we had hoped as a result. And the next morning, it was already around 10 a.m. when we passed the last village with people living there, that also called Ansop. From there was another 18 kilometers to the pass at 3,372 meters. We had managed elevation gains like that before, but that was on paved roads and at lower altitudes. Now, about 80% of the time, the former asphalt surface was completely washed out. Instead, we had this gravel or bumpy granite with loads of loose, sharp-edged rocks and debris. That was quite difficult to go up that mountain with that little traction. And it quickly dawned on me that we likely wouldn't make it over the pass, and especially not down to 2,500 meters before sunset, which, yeah, I didn't like that. When I told my wife, she brushed me off, and yeah, that kind of upset me, and I immediately barked back at her. That she didn't acknowledge my concern made me kind of angry. So I guess it's like she has that special mix of ambition, tenacity, naivety a little bit, and sometimes also a remarkably poor sense of time management. In the past, these qualities of my wife have more often than not led to us rising above ourselves, which is great, of course. However, trying to reason with her when she's this can-do mode can be a little bit frustrating. And I knew that, of course, but I get easily triggered if someone does not respond to my reasoning. I guess most people don't like being barked at, but, well, oh boy, she really hates it. And I knew that as well, of course. But when I realized my mistake, that was too late for that day. And I guess we've both been a bit on the edge after some challenging weeks and days ahead of that very day. So imagine a frosty atmosphere as we're continuing to struggle up towards this mountain pass. And during that day, I suggested several times camping, but to no avail. So when we passed 2,500 meters, it was really obvious that we could reach the pass around sunset, but only if we continued pushing really hard the whole day. And I told her again how stupid it was to keep going, but she insisted on sticking with the initial plan. That is 2,700 meters. By that point, we were mostly dragging or pushing our bicycles up the slope, loaded there about 50 kilograms each, like with water and food, I guess. And yeah, with a loose and bumpy ground. Every muscle is burning. We are both over our physical limit. I mean, I know I certainly was. I struggle much more in the mountains usually than she does. How could she possibly be so stubborn? Like, I was really, I don't know, like I didn't get it. And maybe around 2,800 meters, when I suggested camping again for the 10th time or so, the view, of course, it was incredible, and we had enough food and water, and there was a flat surface, but no, apparently now she was afraid of some shepherd dogs that we saw a little lower than us in the valley. The last people we actually saw, she didn't want to camp. Then it's like 3,100 meters. We stop a lot to catch a breath. I'm sweating even though I'm cold. The wind is really fierce now. I'm screaming actually. My body is in pain and I'm so furious, but yeah, in a way the anger also keeps me going. The shadows are getting long fast. It's late in the day. At 3,200 meters we cross like a small glacier, and then very soon the sun will get behind the 4,000 meter high peak to the west of us. Yeah, basically getting dark as well. So we really can't stop now. And as it turns out, the villagers had not ruled out the possibility of dangerous wildlife like wolves and bears. But as I don't speak Russian at all, that was news to me. I didn't know that, right? She didn't tell me. She forgot to translate that bit. And well, so when I finally understood why she really didn't want to stop, it was way too late. So eventually we made it to the top at 3,372 meters. And unfortunately, I did not get to enjoy that really epic view, because pretty much immediately my body started revolting. Like, it was time to pay the price. It started with the shaking chills, and then soon it was followed by really explosive diarrhea, high fever, muscle cramps, and then also the symptoms of some altitude sickness kicked in. So I had a crushing headache, nausea, I was dizzy, I was super fatigued and very short of breath. So that was quite difficult. Like, even going to the outhouse 50 meters away was a big challenge. And had we both had enough patience and strength to communicate clearly, and especially also non-violently, also a lot of suffering, especially I guess I could have done a lot better if we had ascended slower with an extra day. And I had been afraid of having to descend and fading daylight, and now my state was even worse than I had expected it. If you want to know what happened next, check out our YouTube channel, Amazing World Bike Tour. Our second episode from Tajikistan tells the whole story and continues with a big surprise.
Wow, Mathias, what a monumental day. And listeners, he has left us there with a nice little hook. And I can tell you that just a couple of days ago, I actually watched this whole day play out on their YouTube channel, which I have provided a link to in the show notes. It really takes me to what he was feeling in this moment, as well as Arev as well. And yeah, there are some amazing dreamy views up there in the high mountains in Tajikistan, but oh my goodness, this was a day of physical suffering for sure. Check the link in the show notes out and watch it for yourself. Thank you so much, Mathias, for sharing this day of your trip as well. Now, as you know, I have recently been sharing little messages from other previous guests to let me know what they believe the best thing about taking a bike adventure is. This week I'm continuing to do so, and I have adventurer Jude Kryvold. Let's listen to what Jude has to say.
The best thing about taking a bike adventure is the freedom. The freedom to go wherever you want, at whatever pace you want, make your own mistakes, and get yourself out of them.
I love your answer there, Jude, all about the freedom. And I mean, freedom is often the word that people use to describe what it was like when they first learnt to ride a bike. And I think it's really apt that you use that word to describe what it's like to take a bike adventure. Now, listeners, with the start of a new year, it's often where we start thinking about taking bike adventures. And so I posed the question on my Instagram page asking you, the followers there, what bike adventure plans you've got for 2025. And I got swamped with responses. I'm sharing them on our Instagram account in our stories, just a few each day, and I wanted to share a few here with you as well, just so you can get an idea of where the Seek Travel Ride listening community is planning to go. Here's one from the account The Cyclists of Oz. They're planning on cycling in Thailand and Japan. What an awesome place to go. User I Come Bike Home has said, going from Auckland, New Zealand to Nantes in France. That's a huge adventure. Here's another one, fastwon'tlast.cc. They say, we're going to keep it going on the Trans-Mexico for the next few months on our way to Patagonia. Massive. RecRab82 says, super randonneur, 24-hour mountain bike race, half Ironman relay, and riding from Scotland to Germany. Well, that's a pretty cool list of goals there for 2025. A few different events there from half Ironman to Audaxing, as well as a bike tour. It's sort of ticking every single box. Occasional_bikepacker, who is actually a previous guest, Jacob Ashton, he says, bikepack racing. Wow, Jacob, I'm keen to see where these races are going to be taking you. And then I've got Rebecca_GRB. She says, I'm going from Austria to Central Asia and further, also based on all the inspiration coming from your podcast. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. And listeners, I've reached out to Rebecca and I'm going to be doing something a little bit special with her story. That I'm going to be looking to get some audio updates from before she set out on her journey and then while she's away on her trip. So keep a special eye out for that to come. Now, if you're wondering what sort of bikepacking adventure to take for 2025, be sure to consider the lightweight bikepacking tour that I am running at the end of June 28th to July 4th, starting and finishing in the French city of Toulouse. Going to be taking a small group of people on a guided tour through the foothills of the Pyrenees, and I've provided a link in the show notes. Now, as always, if you are enjoying the podcast that I've been putting together for you here on Seek Travel Ride and you want to support me and the show, you can also do so by clicking our link to buy me a coffee. Each bit of virtual caffeine goes a long way to helping me stay energized so I can interview guests, edit the audio, and then post the episodes for you to listen to. I've added a link in the show notes. Click the link, buy me a coffee, and more importantly, let me know, where are you planning to go for your 2025 bike adventure? Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.